On the first day of the 10,028th year of the divine prefecture calendar, an incomparably magnificent wedding was held in the royal palace of the Crimson Dragon realm. All kinds of famous figures had come, including the Crimson Dragon Emperor and Empress, who had come to personally witness the wedding. On the first day of the 10,028th year of the divine prefecture calendar, an incomparably magnificent wedding was held in the royal palace of the Crimson Dragon realm. All kinds of famous figures had come, including the Crimson Dragon Emperor and Empress, who had come to personally witness the wedding. Everyone there was a witness. Futian and the others had been watching quietly from below the stage, up until the point where Qi Shang and Yu Shifei bowed to each other, then smiled and took each other's hands. Hand in hand, they would live together to a ripe old age. But it would not be easy for the two of them to reach old age. Today, the whole world shares in Qi Shang and Shifei's happiness. "We welcome everyone who has come here to pay their respects to enjoy the feast," said the Crimson Dragon Emperor. His voice resonated throughout the palace. A beam of brilliant light shone, and a divine tree seemed to appear up in the air. The tree swayed and fire-red fruit fell from it. This fruit comes from the Ganyuan Fusang tree and contains the essence of flames of the way that have been gathered over 1,000 years. It belongs to whoever it falls upon, and no one is allowed to fight them for it, said the Empress from beside the Emperor. The tree covered the sky, and many pieces of fruit fell from it towards those waiting below. Everyone looked up with a look of longing. Eating this fruit would be equivalent to absorbing a powerful burst of flames of the way. But the Empress had said they could not fight for it, and so naturally, no one would dare to do so. This was the Empress's way of livening things up. Futian and the others were also watching the fruit fall. When he saw the fruit falling towards him, he could not help but reach out for it. But then, the piece of fruit fell into a pale white hand. Futian smiled at Xia Qingyan beside him and said, "It seems like you are very lucky." She looked at him and smiled, which made Futian think she looked beautiful. She smiled so rarely. He did not know what happy thing she was thinking about. All of the people who received one of the pieces of fruit smiled as they were overcome with joy. Then the banquet started. Many pretty serving maids weaved their way through the crowd, and soon a feast that was both delicious and pleasing to the eyes had been laid out. In addition, all of the food and drink at the banquet was rare and precious. Many people from powerful forces began to present their wedding presents. Futian and the others also gave their present in the name of Qianye City. Although it meant little to Qi Shang, it was still a heartfelt expression of their good intentions. The gift was not important, it was only a tradition. Obviously, those who were able to come to the palace today were all people of high status, and so none of them would give a shabby gift. "Wait, there is one more thing," Qi Shang said suddenly. Everyone looked up at him on the ceremonial platform with a look of surprise. Qi Shang took off his ceremonial robes, and his bright smile was unrestrained. A gasp of surprise came up from the crowd. They all seemed incredibly excited. There was a custom in the Crimson Dragon realm that if the groom was willing to give his ceremonial robes to someone else after the wedding feast, it would bring them sacred blessings. Usually, the groom would only do this for his siblings or good friends. Obviously, Qi Shang meant to do this now. But who was he planning on bestowing this blessing upon? Even the Crimson Dragon Emperor and Empress looked surprised. They clearly had not known that he was going to do this. This was Qi Shang following his own will. On this day, the groom could decide these things for himself. Qi Shang and Yu Shifei walked down from the ceremonial platform towards the crowd. Everyone's eyes were on them. It seemed that Qi Shang was not going to give it to any of his brothers. Then, would he give it to one of the top figures of the Crimson Dragon realm? Who would it be? They all watched as he stopped before a young man. The silver-haired youth still looked dazzling as he stood there among the crowd. His handsome features were no less magnificent than those of Prince Qi Shang. This hero of the Crimson Dragon realm was known as the greatest talent in the realm. Was Qi Shang planning on giving his blessing to him? And indeed, everyone watched as Qi Shang placed his ceremonial robe upon Futian's body. He smiled and said, "I hope that one day I will be able to witness the rise of Qianye City." Yu Shifei smiled at him as well and took off her ceremonial robe as well. She put it on Xia Qingyuan. Xia Qingyuan did not respond, she just stared at her blankly. Qi Shang and Yu Shifei turned and left, walking naturally and unrestrained. Good luck. Yu Shifei's voice rang through her mind. Xia Qingyuan watched her retreating figure. She did not know what she had meant by that. At the peach banquet, both Qi Shang and Yu Shifei had known that Xia Qingyuan was experiencing unrequited love. Later, they had found out how things stood between her and Yi Futian, and thus they knew everything. The silver-haired young man and the princess of Emperor Xia's realm would have their own magnificent story. Some of the people of the regional palace were stunned by this, like Pei Min and Duan Wuji, but then they smiled. That was just the way Qi Shang was. He always acted in a carefree manner. Maybe he had not had any particular reason for doing this, it was just his casual nature. However, for the two of them to have received Qi Shang and Yu Shifei's blessing above so many others was truly special and was making everyone stare at them. "Thank you, Your Highness," said Yi Futian with a smile. That was all he said. Xia Qingyuan looked at Yi Futian beside her, then was silent for a while. The cultivators of the Luo clan, the Jiang clan, and many others were all looking at Yi Futian. This palace lord of Qianye City had swept away all of his opponents, and then not long after had stolen all the glory from the other cultivators of the Crimson Dragon realm. His fame had truly been set when he had fought with Xing Kai and defeated him. Now, Qi Shang was clearly watching him. They did not know that at the divine martial road of the peach banquet, Qi Shang and the other people of the palace had already found out which cultivators were the most powerful. The banquet commenced, and the atmosphere in the hall became much more lively. Read the next chapter on our VIP novel. A figure walked towards the people from the regional palace. It was Jiang Tai. He looked at Yi Futian and Pei Min, then raised his glass in a toast. "I've heard that after you broke through to the Saint of True Self level, you have found no opponents of your level at the regional palace? There are many talented people in the regional palace. I do not dare to say that none of them can match me," said Yi Futian modestly. Jiang Tai looked at Pei Min. He had heard that he had beaten all comers. In that case, he probably had no one else left to fight. "You are too modest, Lord Yi. If we have a chance, I'd like to come to Qianye City and spar with you," said Jiang Tai politely. Yi Futian nodded his agreement. "Of course." Jiang Tai turned and left. Luo Yang was also looking at Yi Futian. He wanted to spar with him as well. It was not that he was jealous of him. It was that he truly wanted to test himself against someone as tough as him. Ever since his defeat at the peach banquet, he had wondered what would happen if the two of them fought a battle in which they held back nothing. After toasting his elders, Qi Shang walked over to them. It seems that everyone is itching to test their skills. This group of people had all participated in the peach banquet. It seemed that they had all come together, whether by chance or on purpose, no one knew. "Please do not blame us, Your Majesty," said Jiang Tai. "Of course, I understand. As members of the regional king's ranking, you must not have many opponents within the Crimson Dragon realm. There are so few that you can actually have a good fight with," said Qi Shang with a smile. In reality, after he had become a saint, he had found the Crimson Dragon realm to be a little bit boring. Given his status, people who were stronger than him did not dare to fight him. "What are you saying, Your Majesty?" Luo Yang seemed to realize that Qi Shang was hinting at something. "After the ceremony, we will go and settle this. Shifei and I are planning to take a trip to the Heavenly Mandate realm," said Qi Shang. Everyone's hearts beat faster when they heard this. Apparently, Qi Shang wanted to train. Before he did that, he would finish this wedding. Once he and Yu Shifei were officially a couple, they could go there hand in hand. The Heavenly Mandate realm, everyone whispered. The name was both strange and familiar. They had naturally heard of it. It was one of the 9 supreme imperial realms. How could they not know of it? The Heavenly Mandate realm was at the head of several hundred Renhuang realms, 10 of which were of particular note. The Crimson Dragon realm was one of them. That was a place where the greatest figures of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path could gather. Heavenly Mandate realm. When Yi Futian heard what Qi Shang had said, his heart beat faster. He looked up into the sky. That peerless empress that Emperor Xia and Xia Qingyuan had told him about was there. He had waited for this day for so long. He had asked Yu Sheng to enter the regional palace to come to this point. Now his name was famed throughout the Crimson Dragon realm. Now he was able to come to the palace itself and get close to Qi Shang. He had finally heard the words, Heavenly Mandate Realm. Lord Yi, do you want to continue to be a city lord, take up a post in the Crimson Dragon army, or go with us? Asked Qi Shang. If Yi Futian wanted to join the Crimson Dragon army, he could give him an important position. In the future, he could become a powerful figure in the Crimson Dragon army and guard one of the borders of the realm. But Qi Shang hoped that would not be Yi Futian's future. Given the talent that he had displayed, his life would be even more significant than that. That had been his dream all along, to reach higher and higher levels. I want to go with you, said Yi Futian without the slightest bit of hesitation. Beside him, Xia Qingyuan nodded as well. She seemed to be a little bit sad. But she quickly raised her head and smiled indifferently. This day had finally come. Sooner or later he would know everything. He would know whether or not Hua Jiyu was still alive. She would help him find the truth as soon as possible. She knew that this matter had been pressing upon Yi Futian's heart for so many years. These days, he had been spending all his energy to move in this direction. Excellent. Qi Shang smiled and nodded. He looked at the others and said, How about you all? The people on the regional king's ranking do not need to say anything. If any of you are willing, you can come with me and see how powerful the cultivators of a supreme imperial realm are. Everyone's hearts were trembling. Many of them nodded immediately. They could not miss a chance like this. They wanted to go and see a higher place. They wanted to see what kind of heroes lived there. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Everyone returned to their homes after that grand wedding was over. Everyone returned to their homes after that grand wedding was over. Many were still steeped in the mood, but some top-notch geniuses were only feeling very restless deep down. It was not due to the wedding itself, but what Qi Shang said. The Grand Matrix in the Royal Palace of Crimson Dragon Realm would be activated 7 days later, opening up the vast great path of space and paving the way to a supreme imperial realm. Such matrices came with a hefty cost with every activation, and the numbers would have been astronomical, so much so that even the top-notch forces found all over Crimson Dragon Realm would have been unable to afford such an expenditure. It was quite a huge to Crimson Dragon Emperor, who was the overlord of the entire region of realms. As such a matrix was only found within the royal palace and only important figures would have been allowed passage. No one knew when would the next opportunity to head to a supreme imperial realm have been, if they were missed the upcoming one. Qi Shang had also taken the opportunity to extend his invitation. No one would have wanted to miss such an opportunity, which was why all those top-notch figures were feeling restless, getting ready for that trip happening days later. That place was a supreme imperial realm, which was a main realm of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, that very type of realm which all of the 3,000 realms revolve around. It was said that the number of top-notch mighty ones found in the 9 supreme imperial realms would have eclipsed the total amount of all mighty ones found in the other 3,000 realms. No one found that notion unbelievable. That was because all the most powerful cultivators found throughout the 3,000 realms were found there. There was a reason why the likes of Crimson Dragon Emperor, who was the lord of the main realm in an entire realm region, were few and far between. When one reached Renhuang Plain, they would have ruled over a realm, like the emperors of Emperor Xia's realm and Emperor Li's realm. Renhuangs who were unable to rule a realm themselves would have submitted to the rule of Crimson Dragon Emperor all the same. There was simply no reason for them to not head to that supreme imperial realm. There would have been more of their peers in that realm, and what they sought after would have been found there as well. As such, those who were at the very pinnacle in all of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path would have either ruled over a realm themselves, or train in the most powerful of realms, a supreme imperial realm. It could have even been said that those top-notch forces found at Crimson Dragon Realm, forces who had holiness of nirvanas serving as anchors, would have been hardly worth mentioning once reaching Heavenly Mandate Realm. Their background would have been rendered meaningless. As such, despite being top-notch geniuses found in their respective turf, they would have been moved one way or another. But then again, other than being somewhat anxious, what they would have actually felt was more in the area of excitement and anticipation. That was how cultivation was after all. Yi Futian returned to Qianye City and his state of mind was not all that shaken, behaving as his usual self. That was because to him, that was something that would have happened sooner or later, and he long had the psychological readiness for it. It had always been his goal after all. Be it for Jiu or for unraveling his hidden past, it was destined that he must reach further heights. He gathered everyone around after returning to Qianye City. Qin Shengang, Yen Yuan and the others headed to Qianye City from Xiang City. There were also the holiness of nirvanas from the tribes coming all the way from ancient imperial city. All of them gathered at Qianye City. That grand matrix of spaces activation allowed all of them to bring their own people for the trip. Yi Futian was thinking about who he would have brought on that very trip. Yu Sheng and Xia Qingyuan were definitely included without a doubt. They were definitely neat around. His elder brother, the Sword Saint, Gu Donglu and the others would have been taken along as well. That department had been easy. The key, however, was the holiness of nirvanas that he would have taken with him. Qianye City was considered firmly established in Crimson Dragon Realm, and no one would have had any ideas about the city without good reasons, but there was still a need for someone to stay behind nonetheless. I'd be bringing Chunyang, Lu Chuan shall head out with you people. Yen Yuan and Nanzhai would stay behind in Xiang City to look after Fei Shue, Qi Shengang said. He needed to head out to a place like Heavenly Mandate Realm with them. I'd be coming too, father, Fei Shue said. She wanted to come along as well. No, you can't go to the Supreme Imperial Realm, Qi Shengang said. There were simply too many mighty ones found in such a realm. All manner of people with peculiar abilities and personalities across the board would have been found there. The risk of taking Fei Shue along was simply too high. Once the secret with her condition was exposed, Qi Xuangong's status as a holiness of nirvana at the pinnacle of his training would not have been enough to protect her. As such, he did not want Fei Shue to head out to a place like a supreme imperial realm, until Fei Shue had grown powerful enough to control the powers in her body at will, even incorporating it into her own powers. But by the time she became able to do so, she would have probably surpassed her father. Fei Shue was capable of sensing emotions of others. She naturally knew that the imperial advisor would have absolutely forbidden for her to come along. She was understandably exasperated, but she did not say anything else, feeling only somewhat dejected. The planes of Yen Yuan and Nanzhai had stabilized and they had exceptional states of mind. Yen Yuan was already a holiness of nirvana, and it would have only been a matter of time before Nanzhai reaches such a plane as well. As such, he chose to bring Mu Chunyang and Lu Chuan with him on the pilgrimage, to have a look at Heavenly Mandate Realm with their own eyes. Yen Yuan and Nanzhai were left behind to take care of Fei Shue. Futian, I'll leave the rest of the candidates up to you. Just be mindful of not bringing too many. It is our first time heading out there and we still haven't got a foothold after all. We would have another chance in the future, and then we shall bring more with us then, Qi Shengang said to Yi Futian, seemingly reminding him. Yi Futian understood that an overly huge group would have meant difficulty in moving around. Read the next chapter on our VIP novel. It was especially so if they were to run into any trouble, and the large size would have only proved to be a hindrance, setting them back. All right. Yi Futian nodded. He naturally understood what Qi Shengang meant. Big brother, don't leave me behind. Long Linger looked at Yi Futian with a begging look. She had a bad feeling about things. Kids need to stay behind here and train. Yi Futian knocked her head a little and Long Linger was baffled. Kids? I'm almost an old hag now. Long Linger mumbled in a speechless manner. However, Age of Cultivators was looked at differently from how it was with common people. Despite her advanced age, she looked young and spiffy nonetheless. She had been making progress throughout the years, but when compared to Yi Futian, she was still rather nothing much. In truth, it was not just her, everyone was making progress as well. Those are still not yet saints, it is better for you people to not head out this time. Yi Futian continued, devote your time to train here in Crimson Dragon Realm, and get to Saint Plain as soon as possible. Many looked dejected at Yi Futian's words. No going in this trip before becoming a saint, huh? There were many who had yet to become saints. But then again, Yi Futian had also told them to first train in Crimson Dragon Realm. There were still many places in the realm that they had yet to explore, so they held off going to a Supreme Imperial Realm for now. Everything was to be decided later after making a breakthrough into Saint Plain. They would have only served as baggage otherwise. 7 days were over in the blink of an eye. Mighty ones gathered in Qinya City on that day, to send their city lord and his entourage off. Even Zhuge Mingyue elected to stay behind due to yet becoming a saint. She would have been able to head out in that trip still, as her might as the second sister was still there nonetheless, but she just did not want to be of too much trouble to Yi Futian and the others. It was as her little brother put it, they had to first dedicate themselves to their training, and strive to make it through Saint Plain to catch up. Yi Futian left behind sacred spirit stones and training methods. Even if they were to simply boost their training only with resources, they needed to at least get to the pinnacle below Saint Plain. So long as their states of mind proved to be sound, getting into Saint Plain would not have been much of a problem. The Saint Plain was a threshold in itself, and one state of mind was of the utmost importance. Wait for me to come home. Gu Donglu stood before Zhuge Mingyue and said, "Relax, I'm not running off with someone else. Take care of our little brother." Zhuge Mingyue smiled and said. Yi Futian felt rather speechless, finding her second sister to still be that tough and unyielding. "Second sister, you seriously think I'd need looking after?" Yi Futian shrugged and said, "Yeah, right." Zhuge Mingyue glared at Yi Futian and said, "Why do you think these people are here for? Who among them is not looking after you?" Yi Futian felt speechless again and then looked at the ones beside before saying, "Touché, second sister. Good to hear. If Jiyu is still here, you have to bring her back to see me," Zhuge Mingyue said in a solemn manner. She and Hua Jiyu were like actual, biological sisters. It was her who picked up Jiyu from the land of 100 nations and had the younger woman train in the Zhuge clan. Zhuge Mingyue really wanted to see that woman who had the looks of a fairy, who was strong yet delicate at the same time. Yi Futian felt rather sorrowful hearing what his second sister said and nodded solemnly. He then turned around and walked, saying, "Let's go." All of them headed out en masse, waving goodbyes to their loved ones. That trip was truly an expedition. The distance between where they were and their destination would have been a lot further than what was between Emperor Xia's realm and Crimson Dragon realm. The place they were heading to, a Supreme Imperial realm, would have had mighty ones all over the place, and that place would have been at the very pinnacle of the 3,000 realms. That would have truly been the place where Yi Futian belonged. He would have met the most extraordinary of figures in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, as well the greatest of the best of geniuses. He would have truly found his match there. And of course, he would have found friends there as well. Many were already at the royal palace when Yi Futian and the others arrived, and people from all corners of the realm had mighty ones among them. Yi Futian saw many familiar faces: Pei Min, Duan Wuji, Yin Tianjiao, Luo Yang, Jiang Taiyi, and many other legendary figures. All of them would have headed out, and all of them brought many mighty ones with them as well. Qi Shang and Yu Shifei were naturally there as well. They looked like a match made in heaven just by standing together, and that probably had to do with both of them being very much in love with each other. Crimson Dragon Emperor had also sent his people as well, but there were but a handful of them, and they have all definitely been top-notch figures as well. "Greetings, Senior, I'm Qi Shang." He nodded after seeing Qi Shengang, who was by Yi Futian's side. People like Qi Shengang, who had been able to cut down the ninth servant, was hardly found even in the royal palace. "You're too kind, Your Highness," Qi Shengang answered. "The regional palace is getting ready to list you on the regional king rankings, and maybe we might see another Renhuang rise in Crimson Dragon realm." Qi Shang smiled and said. Many people around them were busy getting ready while they talked. An extremely huge grand matrix of space gradually lit up. Countless images brightened and shot to the skies. That grand matrix had many stone pillars around, which increasingly brightened as they were entwined with the images below. A beam of light shooting to the sky appeared at the center of the grand matrix, as if it was cleaving a great path of space. "Let's go, everyone," Qi Shang said, and everyone headed to the grand matrix. The dazzling beam of light became increasingly terrifying, swallowing their surroundings, and a strong will of the great path of space shrouded even the extremely huge and vast royal palace. That grand matrix devoured space powers in a frenzy, extending its area of effect outside the royal palace. The world around them rumbled, and as a beam like no other lit up, the intense shock was felt throughout the incredibly vast area. Everyone was able to see a beam of light of space shooting up to the heavens. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. The 9 supreme imperial realms served as the absolute center of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. The 9 supreme imperial realms served as the absolute center of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. The Heavenly Mandate realm was one of those 9 realms. There were countless cultivators found among the massive population of Heavenly Mandate realm. Many Renhuangs opened up their own clans and forces at that realm due specifically to the realm being such a place, establishing their own orthodoxies and imparting their own ways. There were several supreme forces being a cut above the rest in that realm, positioning themselves at the very peak. They pursued true supremacy and transcendence, which was also the final goal for all Renhuangs. There were too many regions with Heavenly Mandate realm, and every single region was extremely vast, with populations of cultivators each reaching hundreds of millions. They were Renhuang-class beings who reigned supreme over all, but there were also many weak cultivators eking out at obscure places. But of course, the bulk of the population was found somewhere in the middle. They struggled in the harsh environment around them as they advance, making their way towards greater heights and accomplishments. The Celestial Sword Li clan, the Demon Slayer clan, the Yun clan of Luo City were all such forces. They were all at the very pinnacle in their respective regions, but they still struggled to move to higher heights nonetheless. However, that proved to be an arduous challenge. At that moment, in the sky above the Buzhou Ridge, mighty ones from the 3 major forces stood against one another around a mountain. Sword will permeated the sky above that ancient peak, as if countless divine swords were circling in the heavens. A group of people somewhere was seen wearing ancient swords on their backs, with their sword aura sweeping the vast area. Their might, which originated from the Great Path, was incredibly fearsome. In another corner, there was a group of people wearing golden attire. Their might of the Great Path shrouded the entire area as their auras burst, as if golden rings were fired, clashing with the sword auras in an invisible manner in the air. In yet another corner, a group of people of extraordinary aura had their brimming will shrouded their surroundings, bursting with their own power just like the other 2. The 3 forces almost seemed that they were at even odds with one another. All of them wanted that peak for themselves, or precisely put, a piece of the cut cliff. That cliff seemed to contain a huge mural, which somehow also looked like a statue. The brimming will of the Great Path on it seemed to suggest that it was left behind by a Renhuang. It was apparent that all 3 forces were fighting for that piece of item. We of the Celestial Sword shall have the mural. The leading woman of the Li clan stepped forward at that moment. Her voice was cold, and the will of her sword swept all over the sky as she declared, striking out at the other 2 persons standing across her. "We'll see if you'd be able to take it in the first place." A mighty one from the Demon Slayer clan responded. A loud clang was heard, and her sword will seem to have clashed with the aura bursting from that mighty one. The ones from the Celestial Sword clan were known for their peerless offensive prowess. Yet the mighty ones from the Demon Slayer clan practiced very overbearing methods. They were not about to just yield a piece left by a Renhuang to others. There were many inklings or ruins left behind by Renhuangs throughout Heavenly Mandate realm, and those places were always targets of all manner of forces and why they fought each other. Those sites or items were used for cultivation purposes, as well as some other uses at times. The mighty ones from the Yun clan did not say anything. Yet the auras bursting from them remained just as overbearing, shrouding the place and getting ready for war. However, at that moment, a beam of dazzling light shot from the air, and it fell before any of them were able to react. The beam of light burst through the will of great paths surrounding the area, and blasted onto that peak. The expression of the crowd changed slightly after they reacted to what was happening. Their eyes were all on that beam of light, before hearing a rumble indicating the crumbling of the ridge. When they looked at where that beam of light landed, everyone's faces were ashen and they looked extremely grim. That wall which all of them was after had ended up crushed. That wall had writings left behind personally by a Renhuang, containing complete will of great path of a Renhuang. However, that piece was not actually some kind of ritual implement or treasure and as such, was not all that sturdy to begin with. The writings were no more as soon as the wall broke, and that will of great path within dissipated as well. It's gone. The eyes of the ones in the crowd looked fascinating and their hearts raced. It seemed that everyone was baffled over what happened. All of them were wondering what that beam of light that blasted the wall had been. Someone emerged from the rubble of the crushed wall at that moment. His clothes were ragged and looked rather unkempt. It was only one person. That person seemed to still look dazed. He shook his head for a bit and his silver hair billowed. He then looked up around him and found angry, cold eyes glaring at him. That silver-haired figure was none other than Yi Futian, who came from Crimson Dragon Realm. Where are the others? Yi Futian looked around him. None of the others were around. He recalled when they traversed the space, he seemed to remember hazily a very powerful being who happened to pass by, intending to intercept that great path of space flying through the air. Despite that being having been too slow to actually do so, that being nonetheless cut up the great path of space that was just about to open up, severing their path. And then what just happened? Is this heavenly mandate realm? Yi Futian muttered to himself. He had no idea if he reached his intended destination. That being would have probably been a Renhuang-class mighty one. They would not have been able to intercept such a great path of space otherwise. They had definitely ran into a super being when they traversed space, who wanted to intercept them and find out who they were. That being was unable to do so, for the energies that sent them there, contained with the grand matrix of space, was extremely frightening. But then again, Yi Futian realized that he did not seem to have the time to figure out where he was. His top priority at that moment was to stay alive. Those eyes that were glaring at him seemed to be saying that they wanted to kill him where he stood. After he steadied himself, he cupped his hands and said to the crowd of the three forces, "Some issues happened with the teleportation. I'm very sorry to cause all of you trouble." He was about to leave after saying so. Yet, he sensed towering sword will zipping past his body as soon as he moved his legs. That sword will was extremely sharp and terrifying, killing intent of the sword shrouded him. The howling current of the sword above seemed to be able to kill him right where he stood, forcing him to stay where he was. Those people all sported very powerful auras. There were some who were actually unblemished saints, and it was apparent that there were many of them. "You think you could just leave like that?" A mighty one from the Demon Slayer clan asked with a cold expression. The leader looked imposing as his eyes glared at Yi Futian below. He then turned to the other two forces and continued, "Seems like we've gotten all riled up for nothing. How do you suppose we deal with this?" The one who talked turned his attention at the leader of the Celestial Swordly clan, who was a beautiful woman, wore simple attire. Her form-fitting garb was clean and without frills, making her look dashing as sword will coiled around her. Her eyes were cold as she glared at Yi Futian. "You have any Renhuang treasures with you?" the woman asked coldly. Yi Futian frowned and answered, "No, I don't." He naturally denied right away at that moment. If he were to hesitate, those people would have had second thoughts about him. "Hand over all valuables you have on you. If any one of them was worth a Renhuang's item, you get to live." Li Rushuang's voice was cold as she continued, "Otherwise, kill yourself right here, right now." She had been very fixated on that thing left over by a Renhuang. That item was ended up destroyed by Yi Futian. What was done was done. What is the point of killing him? He is but an unlucky which had gotten thrown around by a teleportation attempt. Just let him leave. An elder from the Yun clan of Luo City. There was no point crying over spilled milk after all. If even such a teleportation had gone haywired, he knew that Yi Futian could not have been someone from some noteworthy force, and there was no point backing him to a corner. It was better to just spare him. "You're very generous indeed, Elder Yun. But who shall be responsible for that broken Renhuang relic?" Li Rushuang continued to say with a bone-chilling tone. The way she looked at it, That piece which ended up destroyed had belonged to her. The destruction of that item would have affected her future plans considerably. So what if you kill him? Elder Yun then continued, you have superb talents, Li Rushuang, and you're a one with rare potential among the celestial sword practitioners. Too bad that your state of mind is too brutal and cold, and you're too fixated with the way of the sword. You're the one to talk, Li Rushuang responded coldly. Her eyes did not look at Elder Yun, making as if the elder was not worth her time. Mighty ones at her side stepped out and walked towards Yi Futian as soon as she spoke. Cold sword will shrouded Yi Futian's body, seeping with intense killing intent. It was apparent that they were being serious, and they truly wanted Yi Futian to pay for their loss with his life. Yi Futian's frowned hard. While it was true that he was to be partially blamed for the incident, he did not do so intentionally and it was all an accident. He had no control over anything back then. From the way the conversation was carried between those people, he realized that he seemed to have destroyed a mural left by a Renhuang. While I do not have a Renhuang treasure, I would make it up to you to the best of my ability. Yi Futian looked at that woman and said. Li Rushuang was unmoved. Her eyes remained cold as she said, take everything in his storage ring. Li Rushuang, I suppose we of the Demon Slayer clan should have a cut as well, the mighty one from the Demon Slayer clan said. Some of his mighty ones stepped out and walked towards Yi Futian as well. They looked emotionless. There was not a hint of compassion in their eyes as they looked at him, only uncaring coldness. Yi Futian sensed that he was being enveloped by killing intent and did not say anything more. He unleashed his aura, sensing the will of the great path around him. A saint of true self? Those who sensed Yi Futian's aura looked rather puzzled. Yi Futian looked rather young and they somehow were unable to get why he was already at such a plane. An elder from the Celestial Sword clan, who too was a saint of true self, stepped out and his sword will was towering, seemingly having turned into a sword himself. He arrived right before Yi Futian within an instant and lashed out with his finger. The sword at the tip of his finger flowed, and sword will of the great will washed all over them like a river of the heavens, bursting within an instant and intending to end Yi Futian right away. The light of stars coursed all over Yi Futian's body. The starry battle form of his was shining brilliantly. He lifted his arm and pointed a finger as well, clashing with his opponent without flinching at all. You have a death wish then. That elder was cold as he pointed. Countless might of killing swords tore through space as he pointed. At the same time, Yi Futian's finger reached his target as well, the finger of his opponent. Boom, 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 extremely terrifying way of entropy seeped right into the finger, breaking it right away. The surge of power ran all the way up the elder's arm and burst into his body. A loud rumble was heard and then explosions were heard within his body. His back seemed to have been busted by a force. All of his internal organs crumbled in a frenzy. His eyes were frozen right there and then, staring straight at Yi Futian. Yi Futian pulled his finger back and saw his opponent slowly dropping to the ground. A finger attack was it took to kill his opponent. He had just gotten to the realm, and he had already killed a saint. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. The sword aura dissipated and a mighty one from the Celestial Swordly clan was killed outright on the spot. Those from all three forces were dumbfounded. The sword aura dissipated and a mighty one from the Celestial Swordly clan was killed outright on the spot. Those from all three forces were dumbfounded. From their perspective, that person would absolutely not have been someone from some top-notch force due to having even such errors happening with the teleportation process. Only lone cultivators would have made such mistakes, as grand matrices of space of greater forces would have been stable, and there was no way such errors could have happened. They naturally did not think that the person who just appeared out of nowhere before them had actually transcended regions, and happened to have a Renhuang class being interrupting their travel. Furthermore, competition between cultivators at Heavenly Mandate Realm was extremely intense. The fighting was far more brutal than even what was back at Crimson Dragon Realm. That Supreme Imperial Realm was even more vast and there were even greater number of mighty ones. Even cultivators were practically limitless and there were few rules binding anyone. They needed to fight over any cultivation resources they were able to find, and more so when it came to items left behind by Renhuangs. Yi Futian broke one such item and that disrupted all of their plans, which was why the ones from the Celestial Swordly clan and the Demon Slayer clan both wanted to kill Yi Futian and take whatever there was to take from him. However, the attack with that one finger from him clearly indicated that he was anything but weak. He just killed a cultivator from the Celestial Swordly clan who was the same plane with him, and that meant that his attack would have been extremely overwhelming. Li Rushuang's expression remained bone-chilling cold, yet she was rather surprised nonetheless. She thought that taking on such might of the sword head-on would have killed him outright. It was apparent that she had underestimated Yi Futian's powers. Several swordsmen took to the sky and sword wills howled above Yi Futian's head, as if they were about to rain down on him at any given moment. There was one unblemished Saint Elder stepped out and his might was frightening. Yi Futian frowned hard. If that was an unblemished saint, that meant that the upcoming fight would have been tough. It was a given that the Elder intended to wipe him out right there and then, but there was no way he would have just sat around waiting to be dealt with. If he were to be backed to a corner, he would have had to unleash the will of Emperor Qua. However, he was nonetheless a newcomer to the realm and he did not want to do so as soon as he had arrived. The recoil would have been bad as well after all. The halberd of time and space appeared in his hand and will of the great path pulsed on it, containing intense will of space. The eyes of the people around him flashed. That ritual implement seemed to be very powerful, and it looked as if he still had some treasures with him. Dazzling flash of the sword of the great path rained down from above in a straight line, targeted right at Yi Futian's body. He disappeared from where he stood within an instant. Two swordsmen charged at the same time at him with their swords drawn, moving at blitzing speeds. Sword auras came at Yi Futian like bolts of lightning. Overwhelming will of the great path emerged from Yi Futian's hand, charging into the boundless sword wills in a straight line, heading for a mighty one. The halberd of time and space lashed out. Raging currents of sword aura coming from everywhere parted in the middle, as they were being destroyed in a frenzy. That swordsman noticed something was afoot and intended to back away, but felt his will of the great path being blocked. PFFD. A crisp sound was heard and Yi Futian, who had been standing far away just moments ago, burst through the current of sword aura right away armed with the halberd, piercing his brow at blinding speed. However, that unblemished Saint Elder stepped out and charged. Towering flash of the sword rained down as he stepped out, with terrifying hurricanes of the sword whipped up in the sky. Swords rained down one after another. The speeds at which the blades move were unbelievably fast. Yi Futian lifted his hand and lashed out with a palm print. Rumbling explosions were heard. The palm print continued to shatter as his body kept being pushed down. That river of swords washed at him, threatening to bury him in blades completely. A cold, snorting noise was heard at that moment. That leading elder of the Yun clan stepped out and came right above Yi Futian, bursting with a terrifying storm of lightning. He lifted his arm and there seemed to be a god of thunder appearing behind him, extending its hand. Said god's lightning palm print repelled the attacks and burst with boundless lightning within an instant, blasting on the current of the sword that was raining down. The sky was lit right away and devastating powers were all destroyed up in the sky. However, countless sword wills in the sky coalesced into one single blade, which was then materialized into a giant sword, pointing at the ground below. Hurricanes of the sword circled around that blade, with boundless sword auras surging into it. That unblemished Saint Elder stood beside the sword and pointed downward, saying, "Kill." Their surroundings howled in rage as he said so. That giant sword wrapped in hurricanes disappeared right away, cleaving a line downwards. The elder from the Yun clan looked up and towering might of lightning was coalesced into a single beam within an instant, which then streaked through the sky like a blade. That terrifying lightning bolt seemed to be out to tear the sky apart. Devastating light drowned the sky around them. Mighty ones backed away one after another. That terrifying beam raised the ridge all around them. The sword in the sky and the lightning then dissipated altogether. The Yun clan elder and Yi Futian both retreated to the side where the Yun clan cultivators were. Li Ku, You're an old man yourself, and I'm afraid bullying someone a lot younger than you isn't the way to do it. That Yun clan elder looked up at that mighty one from the celestial sword Li clan and said. Li Ku's expression was cold and sword will was seen in his eyes. He then moved forward burning with intense killing intent. Yi Futian killed 2 of their saints and was definitely anything but weak. It could have even been said that he was very powerful, which meant that he needed to be dealt with on the spot. He had no intentions of letting Yi Futian leave alive. However, that elder from Yun clan acted in Yi Futian's defense, which put those from the celestial sword Li clan in a difficult spot. But then again, those 3 forces had always been competing with each other. They were of antagonistic relationship, so it was entirely normal for that elder to act. So your people of the Demon Slayer clan is just going to sit and watch? Li Rushuang said coldly as she looked at the mighty ones from the Demon Slayer clan. Come to think about it, Yun Ting was right. That thing was already destroyed and there was no point killing the kid. We'll just let the matter slide and have no intentions to pursue the matter further. Excuse us. The mighty ones from the Demon Slayer clan made up their mind on the spot, leaving immediately as soon as that one mighty one finished talking, without staying around for even a second longer. That silver-haired young man who appeared out of nowhere was very powerful, which caused them to re-evaluate their opponent, as well to weigh the pros and cons of cutting him down. Furthermore, the Yun clan stepped in on his behalf, so they saw fit to just give up right away. By the way, they had no score to settle with Yi Futian to begin with, so it was better to just leave and pretend that nothing happened. Ba *** arts. Li Rushuang's expression remained cold. Sword will circled about her as she cast a glance at the mighty ones of Yun clan. She then said, Yun Teng, he killed 2 of ours. Are you sure you are going to cover for him? Indeed. Yun Teng replied coldly. Li Rushuang was superbly talented and was one of the best to be found in that region. As such, she showed no fear nor respect towards that elder at all. However, it would have been difficult if she were to insist on taking Yi Futian. Sword auras howled in the sky around them, making that space extremely stifling. Li Rushuang glared at the one standing across her. She eventually waved the sleeve of her robe, turning around and saying, "Let's go." Her group turned around and left right afterwards. It would have been difficult to kill Yi Futian in such a situation. Yi Futian himself was of formidable powers as well, meaning that it would have been difficult to even just take him on. The only option for the time being was to give up. Yi Futian then cupped his hands and said to Yun Teng, after the ones from the celestial sword Li clan left, "Thank you for saving me, senior." "That is nothing. I'm Yun Teng of the Yun clan of Luo City," the elder smiled and said. He saw Yi Futian mumbling when the young man arrived, looking rather dazed yet was clearly formidable. All of that piqued the elder's interest. "My name is Yi Futian." Yi Futian replied, "Elder Yun, is this Heavenly Mandate Realm?" Yun Teng's eyes flashed and he looked puzzled. He then stared at Yi Futian with inquisitive eyes. "That kid is asking if this is Heavenly Mandate Realm?" The elder then continued after that thought, "This is indeed Heavenly Mandate Realm. Are you here from other realms? Something wrong with your grand matrix of space?" Yi Futian was rather relieved hearing what that elder said. It seemed that he did not end up in the wrong place. He was worried that he was left behind in some other realms. They were probably at the edge of Heavenly Mandate Realm when some Renhuang-class person happened to see them and intended to intercept them, and that person failed and caused what happened then instead. "Indeed. I'm from Crimson Dragon Realm around these parts," Yi Futian nodded and answered. While the grand matrix of space had indeed been disrupted, the others should have arrived at Heavenly Mandate Realm nonetheless, and they would not have been all that far away. He was only hoping that they had better luck with things than he did. It was fortunate that he only brought saints with him on that trip. While being at St. Plain did not mean one would have been considered strong at Heavenly Mandate Realm, it would have at least meant that they were able to stand on their own. Nothing would have happened if they were to not run into any messy troubles. According to what I know, it is rather difficult for other realms of other regions to come to Heavenly Mandate Realm, which is a supreme imperial realm. I could see that you are of considerable powers. So that is how it is then. I assume that you're a descendant of a Renhuang at Crimson Dragon Realm? Yun Teng smiled and said, Yi Futian looked like he was a total mess when he first arrived, with his hair and clothes looking very unkempt. However, after he brushed and straightened himself, it was not difficult to see that he was of extraordinary bearing. "I'm not." Yi Futian shook his hand. "We're on this pilgrimage to Heavenly Mandate Realm with the Prince of Crimson Dragon Realm. Something happened with teleportation and we were all thrown all over the place." The elder nodded and said, "So that was what happened. You've just arrived and is separated from your friends. How about we head to the Yun clan of Luo City for bit? I get someone to help you find your friends and see if they're around these parts. What do you say?" Yun Teng continued. People who were capable of traversing realm regions with the prince would have definitely been someone extremely talented, even if they were to not be a descendant of Crimson Dragon Emperor. They would not have had the right to be on such a trip otherwise. Heavenly Mandate Realm was a supreme imperial realm and powerful people were everywhere, but that did not mean that all of them would have been aloof, arrogant pricks. The Yun clan of Luo City had always intended to become a Renhuang class force. People who came from Renhuang class forces of other realms would have definitely been very exceptional, even when compared to those from Heavenly Mandate Realm. It was just that they were unable to compare to those at the very pinnacle in the realm. Yi Futian stayed silent for a brief moment before nodding and saying, "All right, I'm sorry to have been of trouble to you, senior." He had just gotten to Heavenly Mandate Realm and he knew next to nothing. He too wanted to find out more about the realm, as well as the parts where he actually was. Yun Teng proposed to let him go as soon as he showed, so he assumed that the elder had little to no ulterior motives and would not have done him any harm. He was getting ready to look for Yu Sheng, Xiaqing Yuan, his teacher, his elder brother, and the others. "Let's head out then." Yun Teng nodded and everyone made a move. Yi Futian followed by Yun Teng's side and asked, "Senior, what is that stone wall that I've just destroyed?" Probably something written by a Renhuang when they stopped by these parts to train. There are many Renhuangs here at Heavenly Mandate Realm, but to us which are not of Renhuang force, anything left behind by Renhuang would have been extremely valuable, and so we came to fight for it, which you just happened to have broken. Yun Teng then elaborated further, "The region that we are in now is where Luo City is, as well as the Celestial Swordly clan and the Demon Slayer clan you just saw. All of us belong to Emperor Qi's territory. According to what I know, Li Rushuang had intended to take that thing to be brought to Emperor Qi's palace as a gift, so as to earn teachings from the emperor. Your arrival broke her plans, and that was why she wanted to kill you." Yi Futian nodded, realizing that Renhuangs had their own territories in Heavenly Mandate Realm as well. "If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible." Luo City was one of the cities in Emperor Qi's territory. Luo City was one of the cities in Emperor Qi's territory. The Yun clan of Luo City was the most powerful force to be found in that ancient city. Yi Futian found the city to be an extremely bustling one after entering it, which was comparable to Qianya City in terms of liveliness. That city was considered a medium-class city in Heavenly Mandate Realm. While it was without doubt stronger than the smaller cities, the city itself was considered a small city when compared to top-notch cities. The key lied with the city it was being compared to. Many in the city took notice after Yun Teng and the others entered the city, and everyone seemed very respectful, which showed that they apparently knew who Yun Teng and the others around him were. The group came to a grand, majestic-looking manor. That was the manor of the Yun clan of Luo City. Someone was seen coming out of that grand building to receive them. "How did it go, father?" A middle-aged beautiful woman of St. Plain looked at Yun Teng and asked. There had been some hiccups. "Yun and this is Yi Futian," Yun Teng said and introduced the young man to his daughter. He then said, "See to our guest here and send men out to see if there are any who seems to have ran into predicaments similar to Yi Futian in the region. I'd need to be elsewhere." "Very well." Yun and nodded. The clan was a huge one and her father still needed to report to her grandfather. Yun Teng nodded slightly to Yi Futian before leaving with a group of people. Yun and gave the order and then said to Yi Futian, "Sir Yi, we of the Yun clan still has some influence in Luo City. If your friends were to have landed in Luo City or somewhere nearby, it shouldn't be difficult to find them. If they were to end up in territories further away, things would have been considerably more difficult. Thank you. Yi Futian then nodded. Please come in, Sir Yi, Yun and I extended her hand and said. Both of them walked and then she asked, So you have fought with the Celestial Swordly clan, Sir Yi? Indeed. Yi Futian nodded. The people of the Celestial Swordly clan wanted to kill me. I owe my life to Senior back then. Father was not actually doing it all for you, Sir Yi. Yun Ni's eyes turned rather cold and continued, The way the Celestial Swordly clan carry about their business and how Li Rushuang is being so aggressive now, it is just normal for father to butt in. The group came to an elegant compound and there seemed to be a young woman training before them. Sparks of lightning dazzled all over her, contained auras of rules. She extended her hand and slashed. The resulting lightning shot forward like a serpent. However, that did not seem to be the result she was after. She turned around and saw Yun and I and Yi Futian. She then called, Mother. This is my daughter, Yun Qianyue. Qianyue, this is Sir Yi, Yun and I introduced. Sir Yi. Yun Qianyue took a look at Yi Futian and bowed slightly. That silver-haired young man had extraordinary bearing and was probably not common folk, but he looked very young as if he was her age. However, his aura was very reserved and his training would have probably been of very high levels. Her mother, who was a saint, would not have addressed him as Sir otherwise. Is the Yun clan mainly practicing the ways of lightning? I have seen Senior Yun's lightning ways and the power shown was extraordinarily overwhelming, Yi Futian said. You're too kind, Sir Yi. The lightning arts of the Yun clan is naturally considered powerful in Luo City, but we're not even at Renhuang class. If we were to take the entire heavenly mandate realm into consideration, we wouldn't even be considered strong at all. Furthermore, there is also an insurmountable mountain in the realm, Yun and I elaborated. You mean to say, Yi Futian was feeling curious. Nothing much. It is still all too far away, Yun and I said as she shook her head. She did not want to say more, and that was not part of her world after all. All lightning arts in the world originates from the heavenly palace. Yun Qianyue's voice sounded rather serious when she said it. That violet palace high up in the clouds was to be known number one throughout the 3,000 realms in lightning arts. As such, it was said that all lightning arts in the world originated from the heavenly palace. Due to the heavenly palace being a part of heavenly mandate realm, there were many forces training in lightning arts in the realm. All lightning arts in the world originates from the heavenly palace. Yi Futian mumbled to himself and then continued, Boisterous indeed. The violet heavenly palace was the most powerful force to be found practicing lightning arts. Countless lightning arts found throughout the 3,000 realms of the Great Path have all been derivatives in one way or another of what is practiced by the violet heavenly palace. This is not actually boisterous at all, Yun and I smiled and said. What about Brahma's pure sky then? Yi Futian asked all of a sudden. Both Yun and I and Yun Qianyue were stunned. They then looked at Yi Futian with peculiar expression. Yun and I then smiled and said, While you're of formidable training, Sir Yi, but it is best to not venture into a place like the Brahma's pure sky. Brahma's pure sky was simply too far away for them, yet it was where all women in the world wanted to go to. An empress was enlightened to the great path at Brahma's pure sky, and that place was lauded as the number one mountain in the world. The Jyotian goddess who served the empress was a figure that countless worshipped. There was simply none of them who were not legendary Renhuang. It was not a surprise for Yun and I to tell Yi Futian to not think too much about it. Even the virgins who served the Jyotian goddess had already been a holy figure that countless deemed unreachable, let alone a supreme force like Brahma's pure sky. Is the Lord of Brahma's pure sky that powerful? Yi Futian asked. What you're saying now, Sir Yi, is probably heard by the Lord of Brahma's pure sky. Yun and I continued, that is a being whose will reaches the 3,000 realms. It is said that she is possibly someone capable of breaking through the heavenly path. Yi Futian's expression was a solemn one. That Lord of Brahma's pure sky was indeed too far away from him. However, if he were to be clear of Jiyu's situation and wanted to know about whether his wife was dead or alive, he would have had to get to Brahma's pure sky sooner or later. He turned his eyes around and looked at Yun Chenyue, saying, "The lightning arts that you intend to practice before. Is it something like this?" Yi Futian said and slashed at the sky. Dazzling flashes of lightning shot out, seemingly cutting the sky. Indeed. Yun Chenyue's eyes sparkled. She nodded and said, "Somehow I just don't seem to get the hang of it. I'd be honored to have your guidance. Forget what you've learned before and forget the rules that you've come to comprehend. Just focus on practicing the technique and spend some time repeating it, and see if you have learned something new by then," Yi Futian said. Yun Chenyue was steeped in thought for a bit, before nodding and saying, "Will do. Continue your training then." Yun and I said to Yun Chenyue and then brought Yi Futian to a compound. The place looked elegant and Yun asked, "How about you stay here for the time being, Sir Yi?" "Thank you indeed," Yi Futian said. "You could come and look for me if you need anything, Sir Yi," Yun and I said and then left the place. Yi Futian took a look around. The Yun clan of Luo City seemed to be a place like Chinya City back in Crimson Dragon Realm, with holiness of nirvanas ruling over a city. There was definitely a holiness of nirvana among the Yun clan. Yun Teng was out to report, and he would have probably head out to report to the clan leader. Yi Futian felt rather restless when he thought about his people scattered all over the place after the teleportation turned haywired. It would have been fine if they were dropping out somewhere nearby. If they had ended up somewhere too far away, the size of Heavenly Mandate Realm would have made it very difficult to locate them, unless they were to cause a ruckus large enough to shake a region. "Let's just see if they have any useful news about," Yi Futian told himself and put it behind him, closing his eyes to train instead. Someone else came not long afterwards, but did not bother Yi Futian seeing that he was training with his eyes closed, electing to stand far away instead. Yi Futian opened his eyes and then saw Yun Chenyue smiling. He then asked, "Is there anything I could help you with, Miss Chenyue?" Yun Chenyue stepped out and came before Yi Futian. She was dressed in blue attire, facing Yi Futian before bowing to him, saying, "Please guide me in my training, sir." "You've learned something?" Yi Futian's expression was peculiar. He had only reminded her of something, and did not expect her to be able to get something out of it in such a short period of time. "Indeed." Yun Chenyue nodded, "I'd like you to be my teacher. I was simply giving you pointers. That was just a way of training and I didn't actually teach you anything. You owe being able to get it so quickly to your own intellect. It has little to do with me, and I'm afraid I'm unqualified to teach you," Yi Futian smiled and said. He had many teachers throughout this journey in cultivation, and every single one of them played key roles in various stages in his life. He totally did not expect someone to want to take him as their teacher. However, he had actually fulfilled all the requirements for such a role. The only inadequacy was that he appeared too young. "If you are unwilling to take me as your student, would you mind if I come here often to ask for guidance then?" Yun Chenyue continued. Yi Futian had really simply given her pointers, and that was something that could not have been applied in everything. However, she was able to get what she sought in an extremely short period of them, picking up the lightning arts that she sought. It simply proved that Yi Futian was extremely learned in such ways. "Not at all." Yi Futian nodded and agreed to it. Yun Chenyue smiled and bowed, saying, "Thank you, sir." A group of people arrived from the air at that moment, who then walked up to him. Yun Teng flashed and came to him as well, who then addressed the crowd, "Sir Yi is a guest of mine. You shall not be rude in my place." Those people backed away one after another. Yun Teng frowned and said, "Many mighty ones from the Celestial Sword clan came. Li Rushuang led those people personally to the Yun clan, demanding that we hand you over." Yun Ni's expression became somewhat colder at the mention of the Celestial Sword Li clan. The same went with Yun Chenyue as well. "Aren't the Celestial Sword Li clan enemies with the Yun clan of Luo City?" Yi Futian asked. "Why is Li Rushuang able to come all the way here to make demands?" Li Rushuang was extraordinarily talented among her generation in the Celestial Sword Li clan, and it was extremely possible for her to train under Emperor Qi. Yun Teng elaborated, "Emperor Qi often picks a bunch of people in his territory, and they stand a chance of being personally taught by the emperor. Li Rushuang's talents are such that the probability of her making it is extremely high." As such, she has been very proactive in making the necessary preparations. If Li Rushuang were to succeed, then the status of the Celestial Swordly clan would have changed considerably, and they would have been able to loom right over us. Yun Qianyue's aura was that of extreme cold. She had been training very diligently in her clan, just so to one day surpass those from the Celestial Swordly clan. She saw Li Rushuang as her goal, driving herself forward. Yi Futian was even able to sense faint killing intent from her. He looked at Yun Qianyue in a curious manner, and Yun Teng at the side added, "Qianyue's father died by the hands of those from the Celestial Swordly clan." Yi Futian's pupils constricted slightly. He only understood why Yun and I said that Yun Teng was not only doing what was done for him back then. Sword wills howled outside the Yun clan manor at that moment. A group of mighty ones rode on their swords, and the woman leading them was none other than Li Rushuang. They knew that they were not able to kill Yi Futian back then and gave. They also knew that Yun Ting had considerable enmity for them. At that moment, however, she came directly to the Yun clan and demanded they hand over the man they were looking for, and it was to see if the Yun clan would have complied. Li Rushuang had elders standing on each side of her. One of them was a senior from the Celestial Swordly clan, who had been the unblemished saint out to cut Yi Futian down back then. Li Rushuang had elders standing on each side of her. One of them was a senior from the Celestial Swordly clan, who had been the unblemished saint out to cut Yi Futian down back then. The other elder was wearing a tight-fitting long robe and looked to be over 50 years old. His eyes were narrowed and rather eerie and gave the impression that he was unfriendly. He stood with his hands behind his back, and those narrowed eyes of his looked rather cold. He seldom appeared in the region, so there were few who knew of him. A group of mighty ones from the Yun clan were there. The one who took the lead was named Yun Chong, who was Yun Teng's brother. His bearing was calm and steady as he looked at Li Rushuang. Yun Chong actually spent more time eyeing the long-robed elder beside Li Rushuang. He was suspicious of that person's identity. From his perspective, the Celestial Swordly clan was the enemy, and they had a lot of scores to settle with each other. Despite Li Rushuang's forceful temperament, they should not have dared to demand that the Yun clan hand anyone over. That elder was probably not someone from the Celestial Swordly clan. "You do not look familiar. May I ask where you train?" Yun Chong asked in a probing manner. The elder with narrowed eyes seemed to have turned his eyes into slits when he looked at Yun Chong. His eyes seemed plain and uncaring, not bothering with unblemished saints from the Yun clan of Luo City. He did not even bother responding. That made Yun Chong feel rather heavy deep down. If that person dared to ignore him like that, he must really be someone formidable. Li Rushuang shot a sarcastic look at Yun Chong. Yi Futian had killed 2 saints from the Celestial Swordly clan, and the Yun clan was actually still covering for him. Other than for revenge, she was there at the Yun clan to have those on the other side offend the people at her side. So long as the Yun clan refused to yield, it would naturally offend that elder. She wanted to see how the Yun clan would react to it. "Yun Chong, do you know that Renhuang mural back then was something that Ms. Rushuang intended to take and present to the Zhuqiu clan of the Imperial City? It was fine that you didn't want to do anything about the mural being destroyed, but you people of the Yun clan actually covered for him. How do you suppose we settle this then?" Li Ku, who stood beside Li Rushuang, asked. Yun Chong felt rather troubled hearing what he said. He took a serious look at the one at Li Rushuang's side. The Zhuqiu clan of the Imperial City. The Zhuqiu clan had come to fame and gained status due to the current clan leader having served as a bodyguard for Emperor Qi once and training with the emperor, going through thick and thin with him. The Zhuqiu held incredible sway over a vast region and were of very high renown and status. Many legendary people had gradually emerged from the clan, and the clan had continued to grow strong. They were of extremely high status in Emperor Qi's territory, and they were one of the most powerful clans around. They held so much sway that they were even able to affect how the emperor made decisions. For instance, Emperor Qi chose geniuses from his territory to pass on methods of cultivation, but there was no way he could attend to everything. As such, he delegated a substantial amount of responsibilities to others, and the Zhuqiu clan was one of those at such levels, commanding incredible influence. It was clear by then that Li Rushuang did not intend to fight for that mural left behind by a Renhuang in order to present it to the royal court. She intended to gift it to the Zhuoqiu clan, which was serving the royal palace, instead. She intended to use that as a stepping stone in order to get closer to Emperor Qi and allow their clan to rise by leaps and bounds. Li Rushuang had always been of considerable talent herself. If she were to be instructed by Emperor Qi and acquire stronger cultivation resources, she would definitely rise to prominence in the future. The key was that the woman herself was very good at such machinations. If that were the case, we of the Zhuoqiu clan would have been willing to give it away if we were to be the ones taking it. However, we never knew any of this when we last fought, Yuncheng said. It was apparent that while they were the ones at a disadvantage in the squabble with the Celestial Swordly clan, handling it was still within their capacity. But if they were to make enemies of the Zhuoqiu clan, things would become difficult for them. In truth, the Yun clan had always attempted to establish connections with the officials who were close to the emperor, but they had never had any good way to do so. Those officials simply scoffed at them. Li Rushuang was apparently connected to the Zhuoqiu clan. If the Celestial Swordly clan were to be able to use such a connection to their advantage, it would definitely be a very bad thing for the Yun clan. Things would look dire for them. No point talking about any of that now. Hand the man over, Li Ku said plainly. That mighty one from the Zhuoqiu clan remained silent. He was only there as Li Rushuang's escort. He had examined her talents and found her to truly be a rare talented cultivator. She was still young and she was already a saint of true self. She had an unyielding spirit in seeking the great path, and furthermore, she was willing to pay. He intended to first send her to learn at the emperor's side, and she would one day be married into the Zhuoqiu clan as well. As such, he did not mind that Li Rushuang borrowed such a connection to her advantage. They would be family sooner or later anyway. Yun Chong instructed his men to bring Yi Futian. He turned around and saw a group of people coming closer. Yun Teng, Yun and Yi Futian, and a group of people came over. That was not all. Many mighty ones from the Yun clan came as well. They felt heavy deep down after knowing that the elder had come from the Zhuoqiu clan. Yun Teng heard people talking when he was on his way. He was feeling troubled as he knew that there was a huge mess to be dealt with up ahead. Li Rushuang was actually connected to the Zhuoqiu clan already. What is actually happening, Yun Teng? Yun Chong asked Yun Teng, who was about to reach them. Yun Teng looked at him and then at the elder of the Zhuoqiu clan at Li Rushuang's side. He said, the case of the three forces fighting over the wall has nothing to do with the Zhuoqiu clan in the first place. Li Rushuang, this is between us of the Yun clan and the Celestial Swordly clan. What is the meaning of dragging someone from the Zhuoqiu clan into this? Li Rushuang shot a glance at Yun Teng. She was not there to reason with Yun Teng. To her, the only thing that mattered was the result. Is the Yun clan going to hand over the man or not? Li Rushuang was just as cold as her name implied. She had only asked if they were going to hand over the man and nothing else. There was no need to explain anything. The place was silent. Yun Ni and Yun Shenyue, who were standing behind Yun Teng, looked coldly at those from the Celestial Swordly clan. Yun Shenyue was strongly fixated on surpassing Li Rushuang in the future so as to avenge her father. Yun Teng, we're not in a position to offend the Zhuoqiu clan at the moment, Yun Chong said to Yun Teng telepathically. The way he saw it, Yi Futian was but an outsider, and he was not worth the trouble. Read the next chapter on our VIP novel. Calm, can't you see that handing the man over would still be pointless? Li Rushuang is doing all this to establish a connection with someone higher up. If they are already in league with the Zhuoqiu clan, it will only be a matter of time before they find other excuses to get rid of us. What is the difference between handing our guest over or not handing him over? Yun Teng retorted telepathically. At the very least, it would prevent the Zhuoqiu clan from having an excuse to take us on for the time being. We need time, Yun Chong said. They were also fighting to establish a connection with a force comparable to the Zhuoqiu clans as soon as possible. Yun Chang's son was also extremely talented in cultivation, and so there was a chance for the Yun clan as well. It was extremely unwise to get on the Zhuoqiu clan's bad side at the moment. Though Yun Teng understood what his brother's thoughts were, he insisted nonetheless and said, "No way. He had already made that compromise once. That compromise had left lasting psychological trauma on his daughter, Yun and I. You can't understand the gravity of the situation, can you? Yun Chong replied telepathically in a rather severe tone. He did not bother with Yun Teng further and turned to Yi Futian instead, saying, "Sir, this was between you and the Celestial Swordly clan to begin with, and Yun Teng has already done all he was able to. It is in our best interest not to get involved further. You are not one of the Yun clan, and I hope you understand that." Yi Futian appeared calm and without any hint of resentment. It was entirely sensible for Yun Chong to make such a choice. There was no need for him to take such risks for a stranger. "He's not a member of the Yun clan?" Yun Chenyue asked. "I've already taken Sir Yi as my teacher. The Celestial Swordly clan is an enemy of us of the Yun clan. Are we really just going to hand someone over just because they tell us to? Furthermore, you're the eldest descendant of the clan, as well as a teacher and example for members of future generations of the clan. I'm afraid what you're doing now will only cause others to feel disgust." Yun Chong frowned and looked at Yun Chenyue, finding her standing in a composed manner, her eyes determined. There were many mighty ones in the Yun clan, and he did not think there was a need for Yun Chenyue to take Yi Futian as her teacher. Furthermore, Yi Futian had not been around for long, and he saw that only as one of Yun Chenyue's excuses. Yi Futian understood that he had not agreed to take Yun Chenyue as his student, but what Yun Chenyue had said made him feel warm inside nonetheless. "Chenyue, don't go letting your emotions get the better of you now." Yun Chong told Yun Chenyue off in a low voice. "I'm simply telling the truth," Yun Chenyue said. "It's almost time to head to the Imperial City." That mighty one from the Zhuqiu clan, who had been silent all that while, finally spoke. He swept his narrowed eyes over the Yun clan and continued, "Make up your mind already." Li Rushuang looked over the ones from the Yun clan as well. Yun Chong's expression suggested that he was feeling very pressured. That man from the Zhuqiu clan had finally said something. "Hold on," Yun Chong said. He looked at Yun Teng with a severe expression and said, "The clan's interests precede all. Hand the man over." Yun Teng stared at him unflinchingly and said, "I've made a compromise for the sake of the clan once. I'm not about to do the same again. I was the one who brought him here. If he wants to take my guest away, then we fight." Yun Chong looked very unwell hearing what Yun Teng had said. That mighty one from the Zhuqiu clan, who was standing across them, said plainly, "Will do then." He then began walking away and left altogether, seemingly tired of the charade. Li Rushuang did not say anything else, and she followed suit. She, however, shot a sarcastic look at those of the Yun clan. "You people want to send someone to train under Emperor Qi, huh?" the look seemed to say. "Well, you can stop dreaming now." The group left en masse and disappeared from sight soon after. Yun Chong looked glum. His plans might have been broken because of what had just happened. People from all over the place were about to gather at the Imperial City, and there was no one who did not want to train under Emperor Qi. Everyone worked hard just to achieve that, and so did he. At that moment, everything might have just been ruined by Yun Teng. "Good work there, Yun Teng," Yun Chong said coldly before stepping away and leaving. Many mighty ones from the Yun clan were there as well. They did not think that Yun Teng had been sensible with what he had done back there. The Zhuqiu clan was an undeniable force in Emperor Qi's territory, after all. "Why would you need to put your clan through this for me?" Yi Futian asked Yun Teng. "So long as we are not in direct conflict with the Zhuqiu clan, they, as people who serve Emperor Qi, will have to take their influence into consideration as well. They couldn't simply fight people like other forces do, and Emperor Qi wouldn't bother himself with all of that," Yun Teng said. "But the Zhuqiu clan is still a clan serving Emperor Qi, and if we do not have any other connections, it will be rather difficult for us at the Yun clan to train under the Emperor after getting on the Zhuqiu clan's bad side. Could the Zhuqiu clan have any influence over how Emperor Qi selects the candidates whom he will later teach?" Yi Futian asked. "Emperor Qi selects such candidates every year. Anyone he has taken notice of will stand a great chance, but he leaves most other matters to his subordinates and doesn't bother interfering with any of those matters at all. All manner of fighting and conflict is treated as part of cultivation. Survival of the fittest, after all, Yun Teng said to Yi Futian. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Yun Teng was soon called away by clan members. Yi Futian knew it was because of the thing that just happened. Yun Teng was soon called away by clan members. Yi Futian knew it was because of the thing that just happened. Ma'am, how is the Zhuqiu clan's real strength? Yi Futian asked Yun and I after Yu Teng was called away. Both Zhuqiu clan and Zhong clan were the most flourishing powers in Emperor Qi's territory. They were much more prestigious than any other clans in Emperor Qi's territory. After years of development, both clans had cultivated innumerable top warriors, including many Nirvana Plane saints. As far as I know, there were warriors of the 4 Nirvana Plane in the Zhuqiu clan, among whom Zhuqiu Gong, the current clan head of the Zhuqiu clan, was at the apex of Nirvana, much stronger than any other Nirvana saints. Yun and I said to Yi Futian, Zhuqiu Gong has followed Emperor Qi for many years and received Emperor Qi's guidance. Under Emperor Qi's influence, even though he was restricted by talent and was unable to enter the Renhuang plane, he could rarely find an opponent of equal level. Of course, I mean in Emperor Qi's territory, his ability may not be worth mentioning in the range of Heavenly Mandate Realm. Yi Futian nodded. The Heavenly Mandate Realm was very large, and this area was only a Renhuang territory. Only the strongest warriors of the place of origin of all thunder techniques, 9 Cloud Palace, or the Brahma's pure sky dared to call themselves peerless. However, since Zhuqiu Gong could make his clan prosper in this place for so long, he should be an unusual person too. Even though he couldn't match Renhuang and other top figures' level, in the range of Heavenly Mandate Realm, he was amid the first rank. He was in a very high position. Although Yi Futian was new here, he could tell the competition in the Heavenly Mandate Realm, where strong figures were everywhere, was fierce. For Nirvana Saint, Yi Futian murmured to himself. If he could figure out where other people were and let them join him, that shouldn't be a problem. Or if he could find Master, maybe he just needed one more person. Since Emperor Qi didn't ask about these, it had become much easier. Before we, the Yun clan, had attempted to depend on the Zhong clan. Now since this thing happened, the clan side must be even more anxious, said Ni Sheng. As long as the Zhuqiu clan is there, it is hard for members of our clan to cultivate under Emperor Qi's throne. Yun Teng's deed was righteous. It is all because of me, said Yi Futian. It is none of your business, said Yun and I with a shaking head. The Celestial Swordly clan had made connections with the Zhuqiu clan beforehand. Otherwise, how could the people of the Zhuqiu clan suddenly find Li Rushuang? Li Rushuang is not only extraordinarily talented, but he is very ruthless when he does things too. The Celestial Swordly clan and Yun clan are already enemies, so you are just an excuse she used to bring trouble. Without you, the thing still would have happened. As for my father, I have said before, it is not all about you. Chen Yue's father was also hounded to death by the Celestial Swordly clan. At that time, we gave in and endured the pain for the sake of clan interest. Now we still don't dare to start fighting them because we are weaker than the Celestial Swordly clan. Yun and I explained. As for Yun Chong, who wanted to make concessions, his concern is not only the clan's interest, he has selfish reasons. An offspring of his is very outstanding and is considered the most promising Yun clan member to cultivate under Emperor Qi's throne. He is working hard for it and doesn't want to offend the Zhuqiu clan. Yi Futian listened quietly. Yun and I spoke in a cold tone. Her husband's death must have been a big shock to her. They had sacrificed everything for the clan once, so now, when she listened to the excuse of, for the clan, again, she couldn't conceal her strong feeling of disgust. Not to mention that Yun Chong was not just for the clan. Sir Yi, please don't keep the thing in mind. The whole thing is not related to you, it is the issue within our clan, said Yun and I to Yi Futian. Yi Futian slightly nodded. Even though she said so, the thing started from him. Yun Teng was indeed very kind-hearted. If he could offer any help, he would not just stay out of it. Why did Li Rushuang come to the imperial city with people of the Zhuqiu clan? Is anything about to happen? Asked Yi Futian. He will attend the palace examination, Yun Qianyue, who was standing nearby, cut in. The palace examination is where Emperor Qi selects young and outstanding Saint Plain cultivators. The ones who performs well will have the chance to become Emperor Qi's disciple and learn from him. The palace examination is mainly in charge of powers like Zhuqiu clan and Zhong clan, added Yun and I. It is considered a big even in Emperor Qi's territory. Warriors of all areas in Emperor Qi's territory will attend. It is also part of the reason why the Zhuqiu clan and the Zhong clan have a prestigious status. I see, said Yi Futian, nodding. After listening to this, he could quickly connect everything. All these warriors were competing for the chance to become the Renwang's disciple. Li Rushuang craved the opportunity. Yun clan in the Luo city wanted it too. There must be minimal vacancies there. Li Rushuang specially came to visit the Yun clan and cause trouble by using him as an excuse, and his goal was to incriminate the Yun clan. As long as he could make the Yun clan fall behind, one day he would get rid of this opponent. So, it seems that I need to go to the imperial city, Yi Futian thought to himself. He was not interested in the palace examination. He didn't come to the heavenly mandate realm for a Renwang's teaching. Now, his companions were all somewhere else, but as long as they were in Emperor Qi's territory, they would know about the palace examination. And that would be the only information everyone could receive at the same time. Other people must have thought of it too, so they could take this chance to meet there. He could think of it so others could too. When Yi Futian was absorbed in thought, it seemed that something came to Yun Shang's mind. She knitted her eyebrows as if she was worried. What happened, ma'am? Asked Yi Futian. One thing suddenly occurred to me. If it is true, there will be more disadvantages to our Yun clan, said Yun Sheng in a soft voice. What is the thing? Yi Futian asked. There is a terrifying talented Saint Plain warrior among this generation of Zhuqiu clan whom even Emperor Qi thinks highly of. This time he will also attend the palace examination, but he will walk through it. He is a similar age to Li Rushuang, Yun and I softly said. Li Rushuang is determined in cultivation and has ambition. His talent and appearance are also outstanding. This time the Zhuqiu clan sent warriors to visit the Celestial Sword Li clan in person. Or maybe, you mean they arranged a political marriage for him? Asked Yi Futian. Yun Nin nodded and said, if so, Li Rushuang's status will immediately rise, and the Celestial Sword Li clan will also get a chance. Thinking about this, Yun and I didn't look very good. She had been seeking revenge after her husband's death. But if the Celestial Sword Li clan flourished, survival, not to mention revenge, would be hard. Yun Qianyue often came to consult with Yi Futian. Every time, Yi Futian would share his previous comprehension with her since he had experienced the cultivation path Yun Qianyue was working on, and he was good at comprehending things, especially when it came to the integration of the power of rules and creation. And it was what Yun Qianyue was going through. At this moment, Yun Qianyue was sitting and cultivating in Yi Futian's courtyard, her eyes closed. Thunder burst around her, emitting gorgeous light. Yi Futian was sitting a short distance away and was playing an ancient zither. The voice of the zither was full of energy, fierce like thunder. It also affected Yun Qianyue and helped her enter the artistic atmosphere of it. Listening to music that fit one's personality was beneficial to a person's cultivation. Suddenly, as if the forceful sound of zither exploded in the artistic atmosphere, the destructive thunder rose. The light of thunder around Yun Qianyue's body illuminated the sky and erupted at once. She opened her eyes. The spirit around her surged. The destructive thunder and lightning were about to flood the whole space. After a while, the will of thunder rules was gradually appeased. She had a look of amazement on her face. She turned her beautiful eyes toward Yi Futian and said, "Thank you, sir." These days, Yi Futian had been guiding her cultivation. She had not only made quick progress in thunder techniques, but with the aid of the zither, she had even improved her state of mind, and the thunder techniques suited her better, which was a wonderful feeling. "You have talent," Yi Futian said with a smile. He discovered Yun Qianyue's talent was actually very outstanding and that she had potential. "That is because the teacher teaches well," said Yun Qianyue, laughing. "I never promised to be your teacher," said Yi Futian with a laugh. "Fine. You are good at teaching," said Yun Qianyue, smiling. At the same time, in another villa of the Yun clan, Yun Chong was standing in the courtyard. Behind him, a young man stood with his hands behind back in an unusual manner. A group of people came in front of them and slightly bowed. "How's it going?" asked Yun Chong. The Zhuqiu clan and Celestial Swordly clan indeed had the plan to unite by marriage, that person replied. Hearing this, Yun Chong immediately turned sullen. Behind him, the young man's face turned gloomy too. It might hinder him from cultivating under the throne of Emperor Qi. Yun Chong waved his hand. His mind was released and enveloped the space as if prohibiting others from probing into it. He looked at the person and asked, "And the other thing I told you to do, how is it?" That person took a bow and cupped his hands as a salute and replied, "It's going well." As you expected, Zhong clan indeed showed their interest, especially Miss Genua. They have promised to help if we show a willingness to send them to Zhong clan in service. "Good," said Yun Chong. He stared at him with a pair of piercing eyes and told him, "Nobody else shall know about it. You must change your wording in front of the clan lord. Do you understand?" "Aye, sir," he replied, nodding. "Then you can go," said Yun Chong. He waved his hand, and a storage ring flew into that person's hand. He bowed and showed gratitude, then soon retreated and left the place. Yun Chong looked into the distance. Coldness flashed across his face. Yun Ting didn't get along with him after the first thing happened, but now that he was dead, it was meaningless to linger on it. All was for the clan to get stronger. Now, they even sheltered a stranger and displeased the Zhuqiu clan. Luckily, Yun Chong had prepared a backup plan. For the clan, this time, he had to let Yun Ting make sacrifices again. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Yun Ting came to the villa where Yi Futian was. Yun Ting came to the villa where Yi Futian was. "Sir." Yi Futian opened his eyes and saluted. He was cultivating. "I just found a cultivator roaming around in the Luo city. His name is Yu Sheng. Do you know him?" asked Yun Ting. Yi Futian paused a second and then nodded, smiling. He didn't expect Yu Sheng was nearby. "Where is he?" he stood up and asked. "Let's go," Yun Ting said and turned around. Yi Futian followed him, and soon they flashed away from the Yun residence. In Luo City, a lot of people gathered in one place, bustling with noise. Some cultivators were lying on the ground. All of them were saint-level cultivators with some fame in Luo City. They were usually considered geniuses. However, at this moment, they had been beaten down. All were lying on the ground. Next to them, their seniors were encircling a burly person in anger. "Do you want to intervene in this, too, people from Yun clan?" said a senior angrily. This burly person was too arrogant. Yi Futian was dumbstruck. He immediately recognized that burly figure from a distance. It could only be Yu Sheng. For real, this guy liked making trouble more than Yi Futian did. "Yu Sheng!" shouted Yi Futian. The burly beast, who was releasing a ferocious life force, paused a second and turned around. When he saw Yi Futian, he grinned. The life force on his body suddenly disappeared. He flashed in front of Yi Futian. Seeing Yi Futian staring at him, Yu Sheng turned his head and pretended as if nothing had happened. "For my sake, would you mind putting an end to the thing today?" Yun Ting looked toward these people and pleaded. These people seemed quite discontented, but they also had scruples about Yun Ting. Since the Yun clan was the lord of this city, Yun Ting was of unblemished plain, and none of them dared to challenge him. "Since you have spoken, surely we will not do anything serious. It's just this boy is too arrogant. In his eyes, we were like nothing. If we don't teach him a lesson, we can't appease people's anger," said one senior. Obviously, they still looked quite furious. Just because of one squabble, he brought them all to their knees. Some people's hands and legs were fractured. He was such an asterisk shoal. "Since then, you don't need to lend a hand," said Yu Sheng to Yun Ting. He took one step forward and said to these discontented people, "For those of you who have complaints, come on, fight me." After speaking, he released a fierce life force from his body. Those seniors' mouths twitched. Just now, they had fought once. Although they were all seniors of the true self plane and Yu Sheng was just at the apex of Doctrine Saint plane, inferior to them in terms of level, Yu Sheng's fist almost broke their hand bones. If they had real combat, they didn't have the confidence. Where did this asterisk shoal come from? One fist knocked out a warrior of his same plane. Even to the higher plane warriors, he showed no mercy either. Yun Teng looked toward Yi Futian. Yi Futian was quite awkward. Before, when he as a Doctrine Saint fought with Xing Kai the true self saint, Yu Sheng was also at the apex of Doctrine Saint plane. He could even beat Xing Kai, the strongest warrior of Crimson Dragon realm. As for fighting with the true self saints of the Luo city, that shouldn't be a big deal. Sir, my friend was really out of line. Maybe he needs some discipline. Let's not get involved, said Yi Futian to Yun Teng. Yun Teng paused a second and didn't know what Yi Futian meant. Did he really want to treat his friend like this? But since Yi Futian said so, he nodded and said, if so, I will let you handle it. But please show some mercy. After Xing Kai finished talking, Yu Sheng took a step forward. Suddenly the ferocious demonic will rumbled around his body. He was dressed in a demonic deity's armor. Even the strongest true self-plane senior shook his arms and twitched his mouth, staring at those demonic eyes. He thought to himself that if he were defeated by this young person here, perhaps his long-established fame would be buried here today. Thinking about this, he said, let's call it a day. I don't want to face any controversy related to bullying young people. He waved his hand, indicating he didn't want to fight. Nah, I don't mind at all, said Yu Sheng. He continued stepping forward. A gust of violent force pushed ahead and added pressure on the senior, whose face turned pale. What did this asterisk shoal mean? The senior tossed his sleeves back and said, I don't want to cause controversy. For Mr. Yun's sake, I will put it to an end. After saying that, he directly turned around and left with those young warriors, who had been pounded to the ground. He just left like that. The crowd around them blinked in disbelief. What was this situation? Just now, they couldn't wait to fight and had to stop because that person from the Yun clan intervened, but now they had just let it go? Yun Ting didn't understand it either. Yu Sheng looked toward others and said, how about you come over to fight me? Nah, we don't bully young people either. Since Mr. Yun has spoken, we shouldn't quibble over it, they all said and left with their people. Seeing others leave, of course, they knew what had happened. They had no confidence in winning over him. Soon, they all went away, crestfallen. No one claimed they wanted revenge. Yu Sheng was standing at the center. No one could fight. He looked quite unhappy and let out a sigh, murmuring, they were all very boastful. Then he retrieved his force and walked to Yi Futian's side. Yun Teng was like, that he dared not fight? He also saw through something and showed little surprise. This friend of Yi Futian's was just a young man of Doctrine Plane, and he scared away old people of True Self Plane? They all ran away like that. Thinking about how Yi Futian killed people of the Celestial Swordly clan with one strike, he was somehow speechless. It seemed that these people from the Crimson Dragon realm all had excessively strong combat power. If so, when Yi Futian told him not to intervene, Yi Futian was not teaching Yu Sheng a lesson. He was obviously bullying them. What happened? Yi Futian looked at Yu Sheng and said. He didn't know what to say. Was it fun to bully them like that? Their tone was too arrogant while they were too weak, said Yu Sheng. Yi Futian was speechless and didn't need to ask anything. Although Yu Sheng hardly showed mercy in a fight, he knew when it was time to act properly. It must have been that someone offended him, otherwise, he would not have started the fight for no reason. Have you met anyone else? Asked Yi Futian. No, after the space was distorted, I fell outside the city, and then I directly entered the city, said Yu Sheng. So our locations were not very far. After the space was distorted, others should land within Emperor Qi's territory too, said Yi Futian in a soft voice. Sir, after a few days, we will go to the Imperial City with you. If all of them were in Emperor Qi's territory, as he had speculated, he should be able to find some people in the Imperial City. All right, said Yun Teng nodding. After a few days, they will depart for the Imperial City. Not only them, but other warriors in Emperor Qi's territory would also go too. For many cultivators, the palace examination in Imperial City was a great opportunity. It was an opportunity that could even change their destiny. Soon, they returned to the Yun residence. Knowing that Yu Sheng had come, Yun Qianyue came to visit. She stared him up and down curiously. From Yu Sheng, she could perceive a gust of invisible pressure. It was as if he had a peerless, imposing attribute in his body. He was able to intimidate so many true self-saints as a doctrine saint, which meant he must be a very unusual figure. But Yu Qianyue learned from her grandpa that Yu Sheng listened to Mr. Yi. Sir Yi was very mysterious to her. She had been cultivating under Yi Futian's instruction for a few days and had made great improvements. He was always so gentle and well-mannered, but so far, she had never seen through Sir Yi once. He was like the sea, like stars in the sky. Sir Yu, I am glad to meet you, saluted Yun Qianyue, slightly bowing. Yu Sheng felt the form of address kind of weird, but he nodded a little bit. Yun Qianyue felt Yu Sheng was not very easygoing, so she just gave up and said to Yi Futian, Sir, I have mentioned to my mother that I want to become your disciple and cultivate with you. My mother doesn't mind. Can you take me as a disciple? Seeing Yun Qianyue mention it again, Yi Futian forced a dry smile. Yun Qianyue's talent was outstanding, and she was a good person too. Yi Futian liked her amiable personality. He didn't mind receiving a disciple if he were in Emperor Xia's realm, but due to the thing he was ready to do in the Heavenly Mandate realm, he was not able to let Yun Qianyue travel with him. There were so many people of Sage Plain in Thousand Leaves City that he didn't take. He shook his head and said, Qianyue, it's not like I don't want to take you on as a disciple. It's just I have my own thing to do in Heavenly Mandate realm, and I don't want to take care of you. Yun Qianyue nodded. There was a disappointment in her eyes. She said, the thing you want to do must be very difficult. Yi Futian nodded. He wanted to go to the Brahma's pure sky to find his own roots. It couldn't be easy. If so, I will say yes to the Lord, Yun Qianyue said with a smile. The Lord said he wanted to specially raise me and take me to the palace examination in the future. One day, maybe I will have the change to cultivate under Emperor Qi's throne. Yi Futian nodded and said, your talent is very outstanding. That shouldn't be a problem. In the future, you will definitely be able to cultivate with the Renhuang and learn teachings from him. Maybe you will become Renhuang too, said Yun Qianyue, laughing. I should go back. After a few days, I will go to the Imperial City with you. Yes, Yi Futian said and nodded. After Yun Qianyue left, Yu Sheng looked toward Yi Futian and said, she sincerely wanted you to become her master. Why don't you take her on as your disciple? I must be responsible for her if I take her as my disciple. We will leave after a few days. Why do I let her miss me? Said Yi Futian. Yu Sheng didn't say anything. During these days, everything looked quietly in the Yun residence. The departure day was approaching. On this day, Yi Futian practiced a set of fist skills and just finished cultivation. Suddenly, he heard noises from outside. What happens? Yi Futian frowned. He looked into the distance and saw in the Yun residence. There was light of thunder falling from the sky. It was as if a fight was about to break out. Father, is this the way you treat me? Someone let out a furious roar, echoing in the Yun residence. Yi Futian's heart suddenly sank. It was Yun Teng's voice. Let's go and see, said Yi Futian to Yu Sheng. They directly flashed there, where many people had gathered. Yun Teng and Yun and I were standing in the crowd. Yun Nin looked grief-stricken. There was absolute despair and even hatred in that pair of eyes, which were staring at people of the Yun clan. Anything happen? Said Yi Futian to himself. He had a bad feeling about it. Sending Qianyue away. It is for her future. An old man said to Yun Teng and Yun and I while looking at them. His manner was solemn and imposing. His voice was sonorous, like a large bell's chime. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.